everybody, it's Miss Olivia again. This is an introduction video directed at the adults that may be watching our Storytime series today with kids. We wanted to let you know why we're doing a Black Lives Matter family series today. As children's librarians, we have the ability to pick and choose the books that we buy for the library. We have the ability and privilege to pick the books that we display. So when you walk in and see books facing out and you see a title that you really like and you grab it because it's right in front of you, we choose those books to put on display. We also have the ability and privilege to pick and choose the books that we read during story time, and those are very important books for early literacy. Now, I've mentioned in a previous video that librarianship is historically a white-dominated field. That is very true. It currently is a white-dominated field. And all four of your children's librarians in Reading Public Library are white women. And so historically, currently, librarians often have an implicit bias. And so sometimes we don't choose books with Black characters or books with Indigenous characters or books with characters of color to read during story time because we have an implicit bias that we want to see books reflected in ourselves, or we want to see books that reflect our community, or I put that in air quotes for a reason. It's just something that we're always working toward dismantling in our profession. So here in Reading, we have decided to make a promise to you with these videos that we are going to make sure that we include these books written by Black authors, Indigenous authors, authors of color. We're gonna choose books with Black characters and Indigenous characters and characters of color, and we are gonna uplift these books. We're gonna recommend these books. We're gonna put these books on display. These videos are our promise to do that. So Miss Kate is going to discuss Rudine Sims Bishop's concept of mirrors and windows during her story time, but I just wanna quickly explain once again, like my other video, that the books we chose today are going to be mirrors for some of your kids. They're gonna reflect who they are because the character looks like them, or they're going to reflect an experience that your child has, or they're going to be windows, which means that your child has not experienced what this character has experienced, or they don't look like the character in the book, because a window, they're looking into a different experience, a different world, a different character's life. So while these videos kind of feel like when we were all in school and we only learned about Black historical figures during Black History Month, we totally acknowledge that feeling. We feel that way as well. We want it to be a both and. So that means that we acknowledge that this feels like that. We're putting a story time in place because the world needs it right now. Also, and we're doing this as a promise that going forward, we're gonna be more careful about the books we choose. We're gonna include characters that don't look like ourselves, that don't necessarily look like our communities, that reflect more of the world, reflect people that come in our building every day, and stop using excuses and just choose the right books. So some of the books that we chose today, they're gonna, again, be a both and. I love a both and. A both and is something I learned during grad school, which is that you can contain multitudes in your heart at once. So both things can be true. I love a both and. I always talk about both ands. I just love them. Okay, so this Storytime series is a both and. So some of the stories we picked are gonna be about activism and advocacy. And some of them are gonna be simply about Black characters experiencing their lives, experiencing joy, going to bed at night, taking a bath, walking through the forest, just everyday things. So we're doing this because Deneen Milner discussed last week at the #KidLit Rally for Black Lives. She discussed Black joy being a form of resistance during these times, and how we as a society often discuss the loss of Black lives, especially during these times, but we rarely discuss the lives of the people that we've lost. And that's a huge disservice to Black Lives Matter. In 2015, Alicia Garza, who's one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, talked about the beginnings of the organization, and she said, quote, "It didn't start as a 501c3, it's a love note to Black people," unquote. So while we discuss the racist history of our country and the loss of Black lives, because of that, we also need to discuss the lives of Black people, because we're fighting for those lives to matter. We're fighting for those kids to experience joy. We're fighting for the characters in your books to reflect the kids at home. And so we're fighting constantly for Black kids to experience joy. And we have to remember that I'm a white woman. Black kids fighting for their joy is an act of resistance. Experience joy during times is an act of resistance. But for white children, for white people like myself, it's inherent in our childhood to experience joy. It's a privileged part of our childhood to experience joy. It's not resistance. It's not fighting a movement. It's not fighting a preconception of how we're supposed to be in society. And so we have to remember that when we choose our books, that you can have books about activism and advocacy. You could have books learning about the past and learning about civil rights and learning about civil rights today and how those are two linked. You can have those books, but you also need books about joy, about life, about kids smiling, Black kids smiling. You need those books as well. So we hope these story times are a first step in a series of long steps to do better. We want to choose books that reflect Black people, reflect Indigenous people, reflect people of color, and we're going to do better and include those books during our story times, because those are very important programs for early literacy, and we want kids to see their reflections. We want kids to see a window into a new world. We want it to be better. So thank you very much for watching today. I hope that you enjoy these story times.